A small country in the heart of Europe, surrounded by nations increasingly at odds with each other. The 1930s have dawned, and the whole world groans under the weight of a severe financial crisis. Switzerland, too. The word is, be thrifty and use available resources wisely. And don't ever antagonize anyone. That will be bad for business, which is bad enough anyway. The global economy is down for the count. The political climate has dark clouds on the horizon. In Switzerland, too, events are being viewed with a worried eye. Of all people, you have been promoted in this precarious situation. Only recently it's now you who guides the fate of the Swiss Federal Railways. Make your contribution so that the country survives these difficult times unharmed. There were times when the future looked rosier. That goes for the Swiss Federal Railways as well. The business losses are too heavy, even for a state-run railroad. You have the equally difficult and thankless task to reduce as many expenses as possible while still maintaining basic service. That's the story. Good luck with it. It's painful, but there's no other way. You're forced to reduce maintenance and abandon services that don't make a profit. although resources are scarce, basic passenger service is supposed to remain guaranteed. And the electrification of routes would even allow money to be saved in the long term. Dark clouds are gathering. The mood among the neighbouring countries is turning increasingly hostile. The Swiss Federal Council has decided to prepare for all contingencies. It needs your help so that Switzerland could defend its neutrality in the event of war. All arrangements are to be made for a state of emergency. The militia ought to be mobilised. Storage facilities must be stocked. It's advisable to create reserves so that the country could withstand a siege by hostile forces for as long as possible. At the same time, life goes on, and day-to-day needs still want to be met. war has broken out. Switzerland is surrounded on all sides by warring factions. A tricky situation. The Axis powers of Germany and Italy want to conduct transit from north to south through the Gotthard Tunnel. The Allies won't like that. The alternative would be to blow up the tunnel. Then no one would get through anymore. Which is the lesser of the two evils? A decision must be made. Will Switzerland anger the Axis powers by blowing up the mined Gotthard Tunnel, or should this key north-south link remain intact? Jews are no longer safe beyond the border. Despite this, the Swiss government is no longer willing to grant them asylum. Captain Gruninger, a courageous commanding police officer from St. Gallen, isn't prepared to go along with this policy. Help him to protect people whose lives and freedom are endangered from being persecuted. Bring people secretly across the border by bus without getting caught. Well, there you go. Hopefully it was the right decision. Due to wartime food shortages, collecting maybugs is made compulsory. School children are sent off to gather all of the bugs. The purpose? To produce animal feed. Make cure buses available to them for this. Thanks to your brave intervention, large numbers of people were able to be saved from persecution. But now, someone blew the whistle on it, and the Swiss Federal Council isn't the least amused. In these hard times, everything is in short supply. The little there is calls for distributing it fairly. continues to rage all around the neutral Isle of Switzerland. In the meantime, the supply situation is so uncertain that urban parks and gardens are being turned into potato fields. Despite your masterpieces in logistics, there's never enough for everyone. And to a certain extent, your decision involving the Gotthard had serious consequences too. Wherever possible, try to survive these hard times in one piece. The Axis powers rely on your dependable freight transports through the Gotthard tunnel. Although they always pay on time, it still doesn't really sit right with you. Switzerland still remains steadfastly committed to its neutrality. The warring parties have tolerated this state of affairs so far, but for how much longer? Some forces in neutral Switzerland will be pleased to see the country join the Third Reich. A fascist plot wants to hand the country to the Germans on a silver platter. That can't be allowed to happen. Sabotage this diabolical plan. A meeting of conspirators is supposed to occur in the near future at a mansion on Rosenberg Hill in St. Gallen. Find and infiltrate the group. The plotters intend to infiltrate the Swiss elite and prepare a coup. They want to press ahead with their plans in Zurich. It's positively scandalous. Apparently there are those who sympathize with the plot. A meeting takes place on the Gotthard Pass between fascists and a member of the Swiss army. A troop of fascist guerrillas is supposed to put the squad of Swiss army officers out of action, making the leaderless troops an easy target for the Axis forces. Work together with a few like-minded people to make sure it doesn't come to that. Plan has failed before you had to take action yourself. Germany has postponed the annexation of Switzerland, particularly because a trade agreement now obliges Switzerland to supply armaments exclusively to the Axis powers. last, the war is over. Thanks to your clever logistics tactics, the country has survived the catastrophe relatively unscathed. Now it's time to look ahead and guide the Federal Railways towards a profitable future. However, first of all, there are still some repairs to be made. The railroad infrastructure in the neighbouring countries suffered heavy damage during the war. Provide help in the course of rebuilding. Switzerland awaits a high-ranking visitor. None other than Sir Winston Churchill himself has announced a brief visit. Only the cream of the crop is good enough for this eminent figure. A celebrity as dignified as Mr. Churchill deserves to be treated appropriately. Use your best locomotive to chauffeur the Englishman around the country. Good news. After years of making do without, the urge to travel is finally on the rise again. And in the transport sector, hopefully revenue figures will be back to black soon. Thanks to your prudent actions, things are finally looking up for the little Alpine Republic. The revenues from transporting passengers and freight are growing continuously. You should be proud of yourself. What a joy! Sir Winston Churchill is delighted. What an honour! In celebration of this memorable event, from now on, the locomotive will bear the great man's name.